One of the things that I think is something that, one thing I haven't been able to do so far is get my Republican friends to get in the game of making things better in this country.
You recognize his voice, President of the United States, Joe Biden, former Vice President, longtime U.S. Senator, seemingly highly qualified to be President of the United States, at least inside the swamp. Dave Dulio is the director for the Center of Civic Engagement at Oakland University and a professor in the political science department there. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. Nice to talk to you.
What would you say at Oakland University if one of your students asked you, what grade would you give the president after 1 year in office? It's been a year now. What grade would you give him?
It's hard to believe it's been a year, and it's hard to think about all the things that have happened in the first year of the Biden administration. But if you're going to put me on the spot, which it sounds like you are, and make me give him a grade, I'm gonna give him a C.
It's not me. It's one of your students. I'm just sort of making this up.
Fair enough. I'll give him a C.
A C. Okay. The poll that I'm looking at right now has 37% of Americans giving him an F. What do you make of that? 11% only give him an A.
I saw the same poll, and I think it's one of those things that's incredibly subjective that everybody can have and can have a different opinion on this one, and there's plenty of evidence to go around. I think the folks that give him that failing grade are looking at things like inflation, the supply chain, Afghanistan, COVID, and all of these factors that are eating away at the president's approval rating. He's at 42% in the 538 average of polls. And there's an important comparison to make too. And 1 year into his term, President Trump was at 39.5.
You know what worries me, Dave Dulio, is that when people are called for those polls, or I'm not even sure how they reach them anymore, but when they are, and they're asked about what grade would you give the president, maybe that grade reflects only the media source that they choose to listen to or watch or read, ingest, we'll say. And maybe they don't really know why they would give that grade except for what they've been told by somebody on the television. Do you know what I mean? So it's really not, or it's possibly not really a representation of how they feel or what they might know about the president, but rather what they're told. Is that fair?
Well, it is in a number of ways, and I think that's really an important point that you make, and it gets, one, at the subjectivity that I mentioned before, and two, it really is impacted by what people are hearing in the information that they're gathering. There's a pretty solid empirical finding that we study in political science. It's called priming, and it's the idea that when we evaluate our leaders, we only use a portion of the information that we know about that individual. And it's really the stuff that's at the forefront of our minds that we use in those evaluations. And normally we would say that, as something, let's say the economy, if the economy improves, we usually see presidential approval go up. As the economy goes down, we usually see presidential approval go down. But the point that you make, which is a really good one, is that these days in this incredibly segmented media landscape that we have, if folks are listening to different types of coverage, those media outlets are probably highlighting different things, right? If you turn on MSNBC, you're going to hear a bunch of good news about the White House. If you turn on Fox News, you're going to hear a bunch of bad news about the White House.
Do you also think, too, that there are people who now think this is a big reality show, that it's American Idol, and they've chosen a team, and they're going to be on that team no matter what, and they're going to parrot whatever they hear that team say, almost like it's sports?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think that it's a great analogy to make with sports teams, right? I mean, and there's a bunch of other ones, right? I mean, people have gone into their corners, right? If we think about it as a boxing match, Back to the sports analogy or team analogy, right? People are putting on their jersey and they're not changing, right? I mean, it really is another reflection of the polarized and divided times that we're living in.
So, therefore, where do we go from here? How does it all unravel if everybody's put in their corners and there seem to be elements who like them in their corners? Like, why is the media dividing us the way they are so fiercely, and the politicians doing the same? And if so, how does that end?
Boy, that's the $1 million question, and I think it starts with the rejection of base politics. And if I imagine you listened to the president's press conference like I did yesterday, and I heard a lot of base politics there, not much reaching across the aisle. And frankly, Republicans in Congress do the same thing on a number of issues. That doesn't mean that they can't get along and don't get along, right? We did have a pretty significant bipartisan piece of legislation pass in this last year with that infrastructure bill. But more often than not, our leaders are engaging in what I would call base politics, where they're playing to the base, and that's about it. I think for us to get out of this, people on both sides, or it's going to take somebody to reject that and move away from just thinking about or talking to the base and try to reach out to those independents who are in the middle and those folks on the other side of the aisle. I think they'll be rewarded for that.
You talked about the press conference yesterday. We have played some of the audio. The New York Post headline is that the press conference was an utter disaster. Do you agree?
I think that it could have gone better for the White House. I think the biggest problem that will come out of it are likely the president's words about Russia and Ukraine. The phrase minor incursion, I think, is going to get a lot of attention in the next several days and weeks, with the president seemingly saying, I think it could be interpreted for sure, that, well, if it's just a minor incursion, it's not that big a deal. Well, of course, that all depends on how one defines minor incursion. But I think that's going to get a lot of attention, and you might see the White House really start to do some damage control on that one.
Yeah, do you think he's lowering the sort of expectations because he's painted himself into a corner on Ukraine and the U.S. support?
That's a good question. We'll see how it goes. I think, I think in many ways he did the opposite with the expectations yesterday, and he was asked a couple times about whether he was going to recalibrate or if he was going to tone things down, and the answer was pretty much no, which again gets back to that sort of base politics that I was talking about before, and I think there didn't seem to be much realization, except in one instance yesterday, when he talked about breaking up this Build Back Better bill, that there seemed to be any admission that maybe the White House overreached, or maybe Democrats tried to do a little too much, a little too fast in the last year. We'll see if that changes too.
And as soon as we see, we will find out the analysis from Dave Dulio at Oakland University, where leaders don't just meet expectations, they shatter them, in Rochester, Michigan.
DTE's Clean Vision is about clean energy, a cleaner environment, and a brighter future for Michigan. We're already on track to double the amount of energy we make from wind and solar in the next 2 years. And you can help. Just go to dtecleanenergy.com today to see how. Together, we'll create a brighter tomorrow for generations to come. Because we're not just envisioning a better future, we're building it. DTE.
Every day, I think about the Michigan I'll leave my kids and grandkids. I'm Jerry Norcia, President and CEO of DTE Energy, and we're taking action now for a clean energy future. Within the next 2 years, DTE will be doubling wind and solar energy. This will power close to 1 million homes, creating cleaner, affordable energy now and for generations to come.
Learn about DTE's Clean Vision at dtecleanenergy.com.
Over the years, our Michigan communities have been through many ups and downs, and this year, without question, is one of the most difficult we've faced together. But it brings comfort to know that when it comes to our health, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan continues to be here for it all. For 81 years, Blue Cross has been committed to helping everyone in Michigan achieve better health and to strengthening our communities. That's why they work with doctors in every county, providing insurance to people in every zip code, while also providing needed funds to care for the uninsured in free clinics across Michigan. And as we all look to the future, Blue Cross will be here, providing members on-demand access to the care they need through Blue Cross online visits, 24-hour nurse line, and the Blue Cross mobile app. For generations, Blue Cross has stood behind their members' care and the communities we call home. Blue Cross is here for it all and always will be. You can learn more at hereforital.com.
Hi, I'm Flo from Progressive. Being a baseball fanatic like me can be stressful. It's not all sports points and touchdowns. So Progressive is going to help you take your mind off your team for a moment. Instead of thinking about how they missed that goal point score, think about the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, letting you choose coverage options based on your budget, unlike your team that missed the end zone net area. Well, anyway, hope this distraction about Progressive's Name Your Price tool was helpful. It sure kept me from thinking about all those penalty balls. Yay, sports!
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Peacock is streaming your favorite shows, movies, live sports, breaking news, exclusive originals, and every live WWE pay-per-view. It's The Office, Chris Lee Knows Best, and Peacock original shows like Punky Brewster. Peacock, watch for free, upgrade for more. Stream now at peacocktv.com.